ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Please, ma'am, over to you. Please take over.
Thank you, Piyush. Namaste to everybody. I think you might have, really enjoyed the last 4 days of session that we had on traditional knowledge, the intellectual property rights, and as well as the people's rights. So today we will have a brief session where I'll be talking about, traditional knowledge inspired innovations, the potential and road ahead. I'll give a few examples to kind of give you an idea when we're talking of innovations, what exactly do we need over and above our traditional knowledge. And then thereafter, you will be given the assessment. Following the assessment, therein you will also be asked to give your feedback on the session. This would help us improve as we move towards the future in organizing more workshops with the IKS division. So I look forward to all of your active participation and also your critical feedback to improve upon this workshop that we have organized. So today being the last day, as I said, we'll be talking about the TK-inspired innovations followed by the assessment. And here, what I would be touching upon is why is it that we need to talk about the traditional knowledge? We know, all of us know, that it's part of our heritage and we need to preserve our heritage. But why do we need to preserve our heritage? It should be relevant in the current context, right? Not only in the current context, some of it would be also relevant for the future. So especially in today's context, when all of us are working towards better growth and development in the country, we all know that India is also a signatory to the United Nations and a signatory to the Sustainable Development Goals. So how many are there in the Sustainable Development Goals? There are about 17 of them, right from no poverty to zero hunger to quality education to better health and all. So there are 17 of them. So do our traditions and culture mean anything to the Sustainable Development Goals? The answer would be a resounding yes, because our culture, the foundation on which we have today, okay, will also hold relevant not only for the current time, but also for the future. So that is what I'm going to touch upon. I think we have given you enough examples of Indian traditional knowledge over the last 4 days. And it's also important to recognize that India is not the only country with a rich history and with a rich history of traditions and culture. So I thought, let me choose some international examples also, so that you would be inspired to do more, and would be inspired to do better. So just a few examples. I'll not go into too much details because of the time limitations. So if I talk about goal 1, ending poverty in all its form, an example from Indonesia is about the city of Batik, where the local strategies are being given priority to the traditional textiles sector. And this is the Batik textiles, where the main economic center that relates to the women employees, over 60% of them are engaged, that is being given a lot of importance by Indonesia, a particular place called the Pekalongan. Towards goal 2, which is about ending hunger and achieving food security and improving nutrition and sustainable agriculture. An example that I would like to give is from Turkey, which is a city called this Seferihisar. Okay, so here what happens is that the farmers engage in a seed swap festival. So what does a seed swap festival do? It enables the local producers to maintain traditional low-cost agricultural practices while also raising awareness for imbibing traditional practices and also to preserving sustainable food production and consumption in that particular area. Goal 3 is about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. An example from our own country is the National Ayush Mission. I'm sure you all recognize that only since 2014 we have a focused Ministry of Ayush, talking about our traditional systems of medicine. And what does the National Ayush Mission do? It provides for better access to Ayush services, including co-location of the Ayush facilities at the primary health centers, the community health centers, and also the district hospitals. Goal 4 is about the equitable quality education being inclusive and promoting a lifelong learning. An example from South Korea, a city called the traditional cultural city called the Jeonju. So here what they do is that they have integrated education and lifelong learning. So both children and adults can come and understand the traditional aspects of buildings, architecture, intangible heritage, and other cultural assets. And it is all about integrating life and education towards sustaining our traditions and culture. So these are only a few. Okay. And if we move forward, I'd like to give few examples, specific examples as to how traditional knowledge can become a way of life, and not only that, an international recognition for many things. I'll start with chess from India. Many of you know that chess has its origins in India, and it is well recognized also from across the world. So the first reference to the chess, it appears to be called the Thalaka, that is a game board. And in Atharva Veda, it has been called the dice board or Adidevana. Later on, in Ramayana and Brahmaja Sutta, it is called the Ashtapada. Later on, a further version came in with the Dasapada, that is 10 into 10 squares were built in. Over time, it changed its kind of form, and per as the rules of the game, it became the Chaturanga. Today it's called the Shatranj, and chess is internationally known. And even if you look at if there's an international chess federation also giving worldwide rankings, India happens to be in the 5th place among the world bodies. And if you look at all the top 20 players, Vishwanathan Anand, this could be a little old information, but as of August 2023, and Vishwanathan happens to be in the 9th slot among the global players of chess. Why is chess important in sustainable development goals? I've been telling about innovation, sustainable development goals, and how does a game happen to be important? It appears that there are about 2,000 identifiable variants of chess, and considering its inclusive nature, the article from the United Nations says chess offers important opportunities in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, including strengthening education, realizing gender equality in the empowerment of women and girls, and fostering inclusion, tolerance, mutual understanding, and respect. And why is it so? If you look at the world body, about 70% of all the adult population, including US, UK, Germany, Russia, and India, have played chess at some point of their lives. And mathematically, it is believed that there are more possible games of chess than there are atoms in the observable universe. And the shortest game has been a chess in 2 moves when there was a mistake made by the first player. And the oldest living grandmaster happens to be Yuri Eberbach, who celebrated his 100th birthday in 2022. So we have an International Chess Day being celebrated since 1966, which is on the 12th of December. So, chess, which originated in India, has become subject matter of not only the global sports authority, but also in terms of the United Nations talking about this particular game as an important tool for achieving the sustainable development goals. I'll move quickly to another two examples from the field of medicine, where traditional knowledge happens to be a very, very important component. So here, this is the story of quinine for malaria. So people coming from the medicine field would understand that malaria is a mosquito-borne disease, and it happened to have ravaged the Roman Empire, killed almost like 50%. I mean, 150 to 300 million people just in the 20th century. And even today, 50% of the world's population are afflicted by the malaria. In the past or in ancient times, malaria, which derives its name from bad air, the only cure was by bloodletting from to limb amputations, or sometimes they would cut a hole in the skull to kind of think that this would release the bad air, and then the patient would get cured. But as the story goes, things improvise over time. And this particular therapy for malaria came in the form of a story where an Andean farmer from the Peru with high fever was walking through the forest, drank water from a stagnant pool of, from a stagnant pool in the jungle. And he noticed that the water was very bitter, but then being very thirsty and also having fever, he didn't have any other option but to drink it. But soon after, he drank it, he felt the bitterness in his mouth and started feeling very uncomfortable. He thought he was going to die. But then after some time, he realized that, his fever alleviated, came down, and he seemed to be getting better. So what he did is that he shared this, story with his fellow colleagues, and then thereafter everybody started, understanding why this particular water could help in the treatment of this, high fever. And they realized that that particular area was surrounded by a lot of quinaquina trees, and the extract of the quinaquina trees was the one responsible for treating his fever. But formerly, quinine, as a discovery for malaria, happened, as the records speak, of course, when the Countess of Chincona, that is Spanish, happened to have fever. So the Jesuit priest of the land, they made a concoction based on this bark of the Andean tree. They mixed a few other herbs like clove and roseleaf, and then gave it to the countess. The countess was treated of the the malaria, and then it became very important, medicinal therapy for treating fevers and as well as malaria. Formally, only in 1820, two French scientists, they extracted quinine from the bark of this tree. They isolated it. They purified it and replaced the standard treatment of malaria with this purified quinine. And this particular treatment was used across different regions of the world by the Dutch, by the French, by the British in India, Jamaica, and other places. In fact, as records again speak, between 1848 and 1861, the British government spent close to about 6.5 million pounds in importing chinchona for its colonial troops. Later on, in years ahead, 1944, the synthetic quinine was made by the American scientists, and this happened to lower the side effects of the natural variety. So this is one story that derives, its inspiration from traditional knowledge. Many of you know that, another therapy for malaria is from artemisinin, and this particular story is also associated with the Nobel Prize winner Tu Youyou from China. So this again, the story goes that, the North Vietnam, which was going through war, asked China for help in battling malaria because that was rampant during those times and is rampant even now. And it was causing a lot of casualties among its soldiers. So the chairman, there is a former president of the People's Republic of China, Mao Zedong, he himself launched the Project 523 to find a cure for chloroquine-resistant malaria. So Yu happened to be there at that particular time, and she was assigned to be the head of the project 523. She personally went to Hainan Island in southern China to understand what is, the problems related to malaria. She was, by education, studied pharmacology. She also learned about the classical medicinal plants and, more into medicinal chemistry, I would say. And besides that, she also took a full-time course in the traditional Chinese medicine. By the time she returned to Beijing after going to Hainan province, they were almost like 2.5 lakh compounds that had been tested for this anti-malarial activity, but nothing worked. So she thought, okay, let me go back to the medicinal text from the traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, and understand what is there a potential cure for malaria, which is quinine resistant. So then, she identified a particular plant material, that is a sweet wormwood from Artemisia annua, that was used in 400 AD to treat intermittent fevers, which is also a symptom of malaria. So then she went into the works. Okay, she isolated active compounds. She tested that they were inactive. She went back to the original text, and then she realized that the preparation was incorrect. So she tried another preparation using a ether-based solvent, and this extract happened to work wonders. Okay, and it was tested on mice and monkeys. It was found effective, and then she also tested on herself and her colleagues, and they all recovered from the malarial fever. So, well, all of this happened between 69 to 71. The active ingredient, that is the artemisinin, findings were shared only in 1972. In English, it was published in 79. WHO invited Yu Tutu and Chinese scientists to present this information in the year 1981. It was recommended only in the year 2006 as a first-line treatment for the uncomplicated malaria. And in 2050, she won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. She says that the discovery of artemisinin is a gift from the traditional Chinese medicine to the world. And this is what is a great inspiration for many of us who are working in the areas of drug discovery, something that can be derived from our traditional knowledge to inspire and also provide intervention for an unmet medical need. Moving on, the third story that I would like to tell you about is about the man-made glaciers of the ice stupas. So the ice stupas, at least to my knowledge, when I read about it for the first time, I was thinking, oh my, it is something which is very, very novel. I've never heard about a artificial glacier or a ice stupa before. Yet again, as the story goes, the artificial glaciers are not, something that have recent interventions. Even the folklores of the Hindu Kush region, there is mention of the artificial glaciers. Again, as the oral traditional knowledge goes, okay, the first two examples that I had given was one by, practice by, it was identified. The second example of Yu Tutu is from a traditional Chinese medicine codified information. This is about a story from oral traditional knowledge. So here, as the story goes, the knowledge that has been passed on from one generation to generation, the artificial glaciers have been built by mountain communities from the Hindu Kush region, also practiced in the Ladakh as well as the Baltistan and Gilgit regions. So the process is very tedious and prolonged. There's a tremendous amount of choices, selections that are made to bring together and make the artificial glacier. First is identification of the site. They say that it should not go beyond the range of vegetation. There should not be a sunny side. There should be no loose sediments, no shale or soft soil. And then they go about collecting the necessary material. So here, what do? They identify something called the Poshu, which is a masculine glacier, and Moshu, which is a feminine glacier. They bring these two together. they add dried hay, they had dried pine needles, they had saltish soil called the riz, they add board, cloth, twigs, kafoor, charcoal, and also large quantities of compressed snow. As the oral traditions go, these, the materials that is made to be brought together to make this artificial glacier are done only by men on their, shoulders, as you can see from in the kiltas here in the picture. And these kiltas are never to be put on the ground. Okay. So these are the beliefs, that once they put it in an inappropriate place, the artificial glacier would not grow. And following all this, they identify a rock cover with a specific altitude and aspect, and then build it to form that particular artificial glacier. And it is still in practice in many of those regions, especially in the Baltistan and the Gilgit regions. So, why is artificial glacier important? If people had gone to the Leh Ladakh region, you know that it is a mountain desert there, and there is a huge water deficit in the summer months of mid March to mid June, wherein this happens to be the critical phase where you have the sowing period. So if you do not have enough water during this period, you can say that this is all going to go high and dry, and there will be no cultivation here. So what happened was that there was a lot of discussions that were happening, and then the first formal step was taken by a civil engineer called the Chivang Naufel, and he's also called the Iceman of India. He got into making the artificial glaciers, listening to the stories and also putting his own thoughts together, especially when he found that the water dripping from an open tap froze. And this helps, by allowing the water to flow and then collecting the ice, you would avoid the tap from its bursting, especially in the winters. So he thought, if in case I can, store this melting water from these glaciers in summer and freeze it into an artificial glacier, then I could use this artificial glacier when required to provide water to the people. So he designed canals from the main stream to divert the water into small catchment areas. You can see all this, the lower picture, how he's built the band to create a catchment area. And once he gets this frozen water, the artificial glacier is built, and this artificial glacier through a pipe can provide water during the summer months. So this way he could build about 15 artificial glaciers, and the requirements were, ranging from an area of 500 feet to almost length of 2 kilometers long. So this is all, the cascade is made of loose masonry balls so as to kind of form a barricade. And once the catchment area is made, you can get water in the future. The story gets more exciting because Sonam Wangchuk, which I guess all of you know about the Three Idiots story, right? Most of you might have watched the movie also. He created something called the ice stupas. Especially in the Leh Ladakh region, you have a lot of Buddhists, and they have monasteries. So the stupas are very important. So he kind of named his dream project as the ice stupa, and he said instead of what Northfell did was build a horizontal artificial glacier. The only problem with this particular structure was that when the sun shines, all the water melts. So the artificial glacier quickly melts and the water is given. So you need a sustainability of the water flowing. So he thought instead of a horizontal structure, if I build a vertical structure, maybe I'll be able to save upon the melting of that particular snow or ice, and I can have a sustainable flow of water during the summer months. And this is his hypothesis, and as well as how he envisioned the ice stupa to be. So the first ice stupa he created in the year 2013 in Ladakh, and this was at a lower altitude. He felt that this is very important because sometimes you don't get enough water at the lower altitude. So then, he kind of improvised on the structures, and he realized that it can be built a little higher, up to perhaps a 10-story building. It would start melting in March, and then one could also go for higher elevations. The farmers would get enough water during not only the summer and as well as the spring. And this particular structure that he created, ice stupas, are now being replicated by countries like Switzerland, Chile, and others. So, what does the ice stupa contain? So, it's again based on the traditional practice. You know that there is a glacier on the top, the ice melts, and then once the ice melts, you now want to create an artificial glacier. So the inspiration comes in the form of the old knowledge that you had, and as well as the stupas that are there. And what did he do? He created a polyethylene tubing. I think if you look at the picture number one, the ice stupa is, the tubing connects from a higher ground to a lower ground downhill. Then he has a galvanized iron piping that carries water from the base of the ice stupa to a sprinkler system. The sprayed water collects and freezes on a dome structure. So how is the dome made? You can have a lot of bamboo and straw and even iron structures if so required. And as ice accumulates, more piping can be added to increase the height of the structure. So a 50-foot ice stupa, which can be created in less than a month, stores more than 1 million gallons of water. See, he felt that, okay, this is good and the ice will melt, the water will come out. But if I have an intermittent place where I can now store water, I can make it much more sustainable. So that is what the picture 5 says. So ice stupas are constructed on top of the stream beds, augmenting communal water supply. The middle one is basically the reservoir or a tank where the water can be stored, and then it is sent for a drip irrigation. So I do not know whether this would work. So the water from the ice stupa is used. So, to kind of bring my brief presentation to close. So what we have seen now is just a glimpse of what traditional knowledge can do, how it can inspire. It could be in the form of medicine, or it could be in the form of a game. It could be in the form of, the ice stupa, which is very, very attractive and very interesting also. And luckily for us from India, we are also governed by very, inspiring policies of the government on traditional knowledge. I talked to you about the national IPR policy, where traditional knowledge, digital library per se finds a place. The national education policy will cover the knowledge of India, not just of the contemporary time, but also from the past, our ancestral knowledge, our heritage, and also the recently concluded G20 that talks about the use of culture and traditions as a transformative driver for SDGs. I believe our traditional knowledge is so vast, it can be shared with all, and there is, more to grow by sharing this knowledge with one and all. I would request each of you to look at it actively and do your little bit on preserving, promoting, and protecting traditional knowledge systems of India. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, I will take it, and then we will move on to the assessment section.
Is there any question? So in case there is an participants may raise their hand. Yes.
Hmm? No.
Yeah, there are quite a few hands raised. We'll take one by one. I think the first one is Ranial Niyata P. Are you allowing them to unmute and then ask the question?
Allow them unmute them. One second. How should I'm coming.
Yes, so we've unmuted you. Ranialji, we've unmuted you. Please speak.
So much. Thank you so much for ma'am. First of all, there was a wonderful 5-day session we had. It was really enriching in knowledge on TK specifically. I have one particular question regarding the TKDL, which we have discussed implicitly and elaborately in our few discussions. One argument for TKDL that has been persisting for a long time is that though we have an argument for a positive or a negative type of protection in the form of TKDL, etc., one opposition view of the TKDL protection is that it opens up our knowledge, codifies our knowledge, and opens up the possibility for externals to maybe exploit these resources. So how do we counter it? Especially in your last slide, ma'am, I noticed that in the national IPR policy, we are also exploring the possibility of exploring our traditional knowledge in correlation with the private sectors. So how do we also ensure that our TKs are protected and the holders of this knowledge are getting some benefit out of it? Though we had all these benefit sharing mechanisms under PVPFRA, Biodiversity Act, how do we actually ensure that the knowledge of these holders are being protected, ma'am?
So as you have, Vijay, would you like to answer and then I can add to it?
Yeah. So actually, when we discussed this topic yesterday and the day before yesterday, we did point out that, yeah, that is a question that is in the minds of many people, that are we opening it for more, the access can lead to more misappropriation. There are no simple answers to this, but if you see the kind of information that we have in traditional knowledge, these are all knowledge that is already available in text. So it doesn't stop anybody from gathering that information, taking that information and using it. So in that sense, it is information that is already published. Okay. So as far as the other question is there, I think Dr. Vishishani would like to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. Yeah, so with regards to TKDL, so far we have been covering only codified text, but in the context of the knowledge of the communities that you had also mentioned, there are multiple mechanisms in place in the country to kind of see, where and how such knowledge is being commercialized. Say, for example, if somebody wants to take ownership rights, say through an IPR patent, okay, they have to disclose the source of information. They had to take the approvals of the NBA or the state biodiversity boards, whichsoever it is, both from the point of genetic resources as well as the associated knowledge. Also, if once we open up the TKDL for wider usage by all, we will have a trace and track monitoring system. So we know if in case somebody is filing a patent and if in case he's used a particular information, downloaded that information, that will be part of our monitoring mechanism, the ICT mechanism that we are putting in place. So I believe we should be able to trace and track such kind of misappropriations and ensure that the communities are benefited by their own knowledge. But for that, everybody has to come together. You need to respect the rights of the people. Say, for example, you don't go for a patenting process, but you just go about gathering information and it is not part of any of the repositories or government frameworks, okay? And then the knowledge is misappropriated. The only way is a legal recourse. So we need to be very careful about this. And as Vijay mentioned, it is not one solution fits all. it has to be taken up case by case basis. Dr. Sujata? Dr. Sujata, you had to unmute yourself and then raise your question. Dr. Priya Pratana, would you like to raise your question? You'll have to unmute yourself, please.
No, ma'am, I get the answer. Actually, I wanted to know the answer, and the other participant asked the question.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's great.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I think Dr. Sujata has come back. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Madam, I don't have any
Yes.
questions.
Okay, all right. Okay, so if in case there are no more questions in the interest of time and your assessment time in particular, we will close this
Yes.
session. So the link will be shared with you. I think Piyush or Anil, you can take over now.
Yes, Anilji will take over. Astu?
Yes, yes, yes. So after 5 days of learning, now we have reached the most interesting part. So now assessment is there. So basically, I mean, this assessment will be done through a Google form, and we'll be sharing the link in the chat box. Okay. So the assessment has 3 modules. First is the registration module, wherein you have to put in your name, email ID, affiliation, and other details. So this is the first module. Once you will fill in the details in first module, the form will lead you to the second module, wherein there will be 20 multiple choice questions. Okay. So you will be given 30 minutes to attempt these 20 questions. So these questions will appear in different order. Okay. So each participant will receive these questions in a different order, and all questions are mandatory. We have not put any negative mark. So you can attempt all questions. Okay. And there is a time limit. After 30 minutes, we'll stop receiving responses to make sure you submit your responses within time. Okay. And after that, you will be, I mean, once you will attend all the questions, you will be, put to the third module, which is a feedback. So we request you to please provide the feedback of all the sessions that have been conducted, so that we can improve in the future, programs that we will be conducting. Okay. So I'll be sharing the this thing, the link in the chat box. And with regard to results, I mean, once you will submit the responses, your response will be assessed, and we will receive the certificate through your, I mean, via email. Okay. So once you submit your responses, you may leave. That's, I mean, up to you. So once it's complete, you can leave. So I am just sharing the link in the chat box now. So you may start.
Yes, Namaste
Yes,
Anilji. In
It
between,
is there.
I request Arya, Unrad Arya, to come and say something.
I think after this, so namaste everybody, and I think after this, you'll all get busy with the assessment, and then we'll just close the session. So before that, I wanted to express our heartfelt gratitude to the TKDL team again, and to Dr. Vishwajanani ji, always
My pleasure.
so extremely grateful, and just for everybody's general knowledge, this is something that we plan to do every quarterly in the coming year. So every few months we will be offering this course again. So if your colleagues have missed it, anybody who wants to do it, please ask them to be on the lookout for information on the website. And we were also wanting to do some kind of a challenge around what you have learned. So please look out for it on our website, or wait for our mail in this context. If we manage to put something out there, then you're all welcome to participate in that. So thank you very much again, Vishwajanani ji, Vijay Lakshmi ji, and Anil ji, for your very valuable contributions and all the information that you share with all our participants. They've been greatly benefited. So all the very best for the exams, and
Getting certificates.
what is
75 marks. They have to cross 75 marks to get a certificate.
Before that, they will not get less than
No,
part of the
no. All participants will not get. Only
Okay.
merit certificate. Complete.
So the task is very tall for all of you. Only those who get 75 up will get merit certificates. So please give it your best shot, and there will be opportunities again and again for you to learn, because this is this is a kind of a subject that the more you delve into it, the more you will understand the nitty-gritties of it. So all the very best, and thank you very much from all of us at the IKS division. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All the best to everybody.
Before we start the assessment, we can stop the recording and live. Am I right? On AG?
Yes. So I'll also log off, Piyush.
Yes.
All the
Yes, ma'am.
best. All
Thank
the
you.
best to everyone. And thanks once again, Professor Murthy, Anuradha, Piyush, and Team IKS Division, and all the participants. Thank you so much.
So we can close with a mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Namaste once again.